Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. From the world of Hollywood comes a film from one of the most acclaimed directors of all time, a comic book fantasy that features characters just beyond the realm of normal, whose paths cross for the final time in a gritty showdown that threatens to kill them all. We're talking about Glass. Glass was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan and was initially released in the United States on January 12, 2019. It was distributed by Universal Pictures. Glass is the follow-up to 2016's Split, which was an unofficial sequel to 2000's Unbreakable. The first two films introduced three main characters, all of which came together for the third and final movie. David Dunn, a man possessing super strength and endurance, and Elijah Price, an eccentric comic book enthusiast with a rare bone disease, debuted in Unbreakable. Kevin Crumb, a disturbed patient with 24 different personalities, one of which possesses super strength and agility, debuted in Split. After tracking down Crumb for several grisly murders, Dunn finds himself cornered, and along with Kevin, are sent to the same psychiatric hospital that houses Price, who is responsible for a series of mass murders. While Dr. Ellie Staple appears determined to convince all three men that they're not special and have no extraordinary abilities, it soon becomes apparent that she's not what she appears to be. Following an alliance between Kevin and Elijah to plan an escape and wreak havoc on the city, it's up to David to stop them and be the hero he's meant to be. Glass was a box office hit, earning more than $247 million worldwide on a budget of $20 million. It received a lukewarm response from critics, many of whom felt that while there were moments of Shyamalan's signature greatness at work, the film ultimately did not deliver as anticipated. Thanks to the popularity of Shyamalan, the stellar cast, and the story, Glass remains a curious installment in the director's filmography, which continues to be among the most renowned in Hollywood. And that's the lowdown on Glass. We talk about trilogies a lot here on the 6M podcast, and with very good reason, kids, because we've covered a lot of them, and because movies is in the 6M. In fact, it's the first M, if you're keeping count. Yes, sir, it is. And yeah, there's been a lot of trilogies in Hollywood. Guess what? Gonna be more. A lot more. It's never over. They sequel everything to death. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay? That's up for you to decide. Movies, as is the case with music and Marvel and magazines and miniseries and more, and everything we cover here on the 6M is all subjective. It's your taste. What you love, the guy next to you may think is crap, and what he thinks is crap, you may think is the next big thing, right? But yes, trilogies are never going to go away. A series of 4, series of 5, series of 6 movies, whatever. And so, like, we're saying all that to say this: we're covering the third in what we assume is a trilogy. I've not heard anything differently. For all I know, there will be a fourth one that will take a look at the next wave, which we could get on. We could get to that here in the episode today. I think it might be interesting to go there with this. But what we're talking about is Glass, and what we didn't know was going to be a trilogy. It is, and it was, because we didn't know. We've covered Unbreakable, which we didn't know was just the first film. We covered Split, which till the end we didn't know was the second film. And now we're covering Glass, which we all knew was going to be the third film. And if you say that the first movie belonged to David Dunn, Bruce Willis's character, that's fine. If you say that number 2, which is Split, belonged to James McAvoy and his 24 distinct personalities, that's fine. But the movie Glass evidently belongs to Samuel L. Jackson. And the funny thing is, you don't really see or hear that much of Sam Jackson in this film. We'll get into that too. Phil, this is very cool for me personally, because for one of the first times that I can ever recall, we're going into an episode where you had not previously seen the thing we're going to discuss. So I know you just watched it. So you got fresh feelings and thoughts right out the gate. So give me your overall view of Glass. What do you take away from this? What's your overall opinion standing back and looking at it, having watched it before?
Boy, this is not a good movie. This is not a good movie. Um, there are things that I enjoy about it, because we've been here since day one, and if you've watched the movies since Unbreakable, yeah, there are tons of nods and Easter eggs, or payoffs here. Um, but as a finish to this trilogy, uh, and as a wrap up to these three characters' stories, it is incredibly anticlimactic,
Mm.
and I won't say that I feel like it's Shyamalan's worst movie, um, but I feel like it's in some ways more disappointing because the two movies before it are two of his best movies. So it's strange watching him take two of his best movies and tie them together to make them loose sequels, and then give you a sequel to both. And it doesn't really work as a good sequel to either. It's not really a good Unbreakable sequel, and it's not really a good Split sequel either.
Mm.
It makes you just kind of wish he would have just picked one and just go, "Hey, I'm just gonna do an Unbreakable sequel," or "Hey, maybe I'm just gonna do a sequel to all of the stuff in Split." And I just don't feel like we got a satisfying resolution to either.
And I did not hate this film. I've seen much worse, but I have seen much better. And I'll be honest with you, my initial gut reaction after having watched it for the first time in a very honestly, I think this is only my second time ever watching this film, dude, to be real. Um, the first time I was disappointed. The second time I was like, not quite as bad as I remember. Okay. But maybe that's because I wanted it to be better. But this film's got problems, kids. In my opinion, this film's got problems. Here's my first problem with it. Not that we have to list them, Phil. Hate to phrase it that way, but uh, my one of my first problems is: does this feel like an M Night film to you? Because to me, it doesn't.
Yes, it does, and I feel like that's part of where it stumbles.
Ah,
Um, I feel like for all of his great artistic choices, I feel like he tried too hard to be clever here.
mm. And I guess the reason it doesn't feel like one of his to me, we talked in Unbreakable about the great camera angles, those shots where it's a conversation between two people and the camera will stay on the person not speaking, and all you hear is the voice. And it's those choices of camera angles and how the camera will take its time and then stay and then not go back but go back slower. It's his choices of how to film a scene. I felt like that was missing here. I didn't get a lot of it. In fact, I kept waiting for those moments. And when I got them, I was like, "Oh, there's one." And then I waited for 20 minutes. "Oh, there's another one." But for me personally, I wasn't getting it. I didn't feel like this kind of felt to me like someone trying to do a take on M Night's work. But the problem is the actual guy doing it. That's what I came away with this from with was like it just didn't feel true to his style. Did it feel like to you that he tried to change his style in any way to fit the whole comic book narrative, or what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, when you say it that way, I say that it seems like a M Night Shyamalan movie because this definitely is an M Night Shyamalan script.
Hmm.
But I do agree with you that um, visually it's missing a lot of panache that the first two movies had. It just doesn't have. I don't know. It just doesn't have the same cinematography that made the first two movies better. And I feel like there are shots in this movie that look really good, but there are other confusing uh, visual choices, and like who made the decision to do these extreme close-ups on both David and the Beast every time they had fights,
Hmm.
where it was just like almost like we were like we're like right in between them every time they were fighting, like it was like POV style, and it's such a jarring it's just such a jarring experience. Like, who decided that was a good idea?
I can't answer for the guy, right? Because I don't know what his intention was. But when I saw those moments, to me, I'm not going to say, "Oh, this is a great choice," but I kind of got it because it's like this: a fight's supposed to be uncomfortable. This isn't Thor and Captain America punching each other. These are two humans, for lack of a better word. I mean, even though they're enhanced or whatever they are, but it's supposed to be uncomfortable. A real fight would not be you stand back, I'll punch, then I stand back and I punch. So in that way, I was okay with it. But I get where you're coming from. It was uncomfortable maybe in the wrong way for you, whereas for me it was like this feels like a real fight. I can buy that this is actually happening, but I see where you're coming from.
But see, I would get that point of view if because it's not so much I'm saying that parts of the fight didn't feel realistic. It's just the way that he chose to shoot the fights
Mm,
just didn't look good. Uh, like the beast kept coming up and like almost giving David these like bear hugs, and then you have these close-ups of David like screaming in the camera, and it's like shaky cam all over the place, and then it's like I don't know, like it just I feel like that worked in Unbreakable because Unbreakable is not trying to be a superhero movie. It's trying to be a
mm,
thriller movie and all these other things. And the same thing kind of with Split. But I feel like once you do this third act, uh, I feel like you could have stepped up the choreography a little bit. And I'm not saying that it had to be flashy like all superhero movies, but it just didn't look good.
mm. And to that point, I'm not sure if I know who did the choreography on this film. I'd be interested to know. Because I think that would have a lot to do with it. It's no surprise, kids. A lot of people may not know this, but a lot of times fight choreographers are actually stuntmen who get really good at being stuntmen and kind of know how to choreograph fights. It would make sense to me, but I don't know that that's the case here because I've not looked that up. But no, I get where you're coming from. I got to dive into this cast, dude, because there's some scenes in this film I want to get into, but I don't want to, you know, crash course all the scenes in this film right out the gate. So we know who the hitters are, folks. Bruce Willis is David Dunn, also known as the Overseer, worst superhero name of all time. I don't understand who came up with that. And then like the paper, some of the papers were calling him the Green Guard. Like that's best we got. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I've seen Paw Patrol characters with better names than this. What are we doing? That's just a minor beef. Sam Jackson is back as Elijah Price, also known as Mr. Glass. First name Mr. Phil, last name Glass. I chuckled at that for all the wrong reasons. Like that was one
Yeah.
of the. I mean, what are we doing? First name Mr. Last name Glass. Okay.
Yeah.
Um.
That
Yeah.
that
And he
was
looked over his shoulder very dramatically. By the way.
yeah, that was not good. Uh Him showing back up with his own clothes again,
Oh yeah.
including a brooch on his
Yep. Yep.
on his shirt with his initials on it. And I was just
Yep.
sitting there the whole time like, where did he get that from? He's
Yeah.
been in jail all this time. Where does it come
Yeah.
from?
Yeah, because he didn't have it in Unbreakable. Did he have it made in prison or in the
Yeah.
hospital? Someone, I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, what?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
caught that. I totally caught that. James McAvoy is back as well. Kevin Wendell Crumb. Kevin Wendell Crumb. It's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. He shows up. But yeah, he's back. I mean, dude, what? Compare this performance with McAvoy to Split. What do you think?
I think he's very good in this movie as well. I would say um there are parts of this movie he carries this movie.
Mm,
Uh but I feel like in some scenes it's overload. Like I can't tell you how tired I got of the scenes where somebody would come in the room and keep flashing that light on him and he turned to somebody else. And it just you know what it started to sound like after a while? You know when dating myself, everybody used to have a radio and if you're just turning the knob and you're hearing everything from channel to channel at the same time until you find the channel you want, that's what it started to sound like at like somebody tuning a radio. Like it's just like, this character, this character, this character, this character. And it's like, all right, all right, all right, calm it down a little bit.
I'll tell you this, I'm with you, but man, McAvoy is a killer because at the drop of a hat, he changed characters every time they blinked that light. And I'm like, oh my God. Because the first
Yeah,
couple of times you're like, okay, they'll stop. And when they kept going, suddenly I quit looking at the light and I just was watching him and was thinking, holy God, he's crushing it right now.
yeah, and that's why I'm like, he was great in this movie. I mean, he did a huge service to this movie because it needed him in several
Yeah.
scenes. Um, but I do feel like there wasn't enough for him to chew on in comparison to Split. I feel like the script for Split is so much better, um, and so I feel like he is doing his best to choose scenery in a movie to distract from the fact that the script is kind of paper thin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Those are your three main characters, kids. And as we mentioned, I think it was in Split, Spencer Treat Clark is back. And a great, great twist of fate. That is one of the cool things I loved about this movie is it's the same actor that portrayed Joseph, David's son. I love that he's back. Charlene Woodard, excuse me, as Elijah's mom. She's back. Very cool. We've also got back Anya Taylor Joy as Casey Cook. Well, more on her in a bit because man, I got thoughts there too. Sarah Paulson as Dr. Ellie Staple. Phil, this is nothing against the actress. I, in my opinion, think she was miscast. This did not work for me at all. I just didn't feel it. There's something about, and I know there's a term for this. Okay. I'm not so much of a movie buff that I know the exact term for this, but there's something about, the reader knows the truth, but one of the characters doesn't. And so, like, that character is acting out of ignorance because that character doesn't know the truth. But when she's got them in that room and she's talking to them individually, I'm like, you have proof. Like, despite your best efforts, you have proof. If these guys are lying, then explain how X, Y, and Z happened. And then when she tried to explain, I'm like, I'm not buying any of this. And maybe it's because I knew the truth. I don't know. But dude, to me, I don't. It's nothing against her at all. But the writing of this character, it just, and we know the truth, right, Phil? Later that it's all a sham anyway. But I never, not one time, did she have me convinced that maybe they did imagine all these things. Like not one time. And to me, it would have felt like, man, holy, maybe she's right, dude. I never got that. I mean, what do you think about her in this performance? What's your take on this character?
Um, I don't know very much about this actress. This isn't really a knock at her as an actress, but I thought she was fairly wooden and robotic in this character.
Mm.
Like there was no real life to this character. Um, I feel like the character was also kind of nonsensical because we find out like early in the movie that her her study is people that are obsessed with comic book characters and attempting to recreate that in real life. Is that a real thing? Is that like fake, like movie psychiatry?
That's comic book science right there, Phil.
Like the whole notion of that didn't make sense. Um, her motives also didn't make very much sense as well. Um, yeah, her character was not a welcome addition to this cast.
No,
And again, that's not a knock at the actress,
no, not at
but
all.
the character itself, I just didn't care for her. And I just think her look was just also weird. She was just so almost monochromatic. Like
Yeah,
it's
white shirt,
like
red hair. Yeah,
it, yeah, it's like just the way her makeup was done, the hair that is very clearly a wig.
mm.
It just all didn't look good. It just looked very It looked very tacked on. Everything about her character, everything about her motives, it just felt tacked on.
And is it okay to explain that away by saying that it all was a sham? That she wasn't that person anyway? Does that fix it for you? Because by the end, it was all a sham anyway. She was
I mean,
part of this network of whatever they called themselves, who, in her words, for 10,000 years, we've been fighting these threats. And like, it was a sham anyway, right?
yeah, I mean, there are things you can infer from that,
Mhm.
um, but they don't really take the time to develop any of those ideas. So it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't work. It's one of my big issues with Man of Steel. Oh boy, talk about a polarizing movie.
Yeah.
Um, there are things that are implied in that movie, but because they don't take the time to flesh out a lot of the ideas, um, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, no, by the way, it doesn't explain it. It doesn't make it okay. I just didn't know what you thought about it. But no, it doesn't make it okay at all.
Oh yeah,
At
I mean,
all.
look, it works as headcanon, but I feel
Sure.
like that kind of falls apart once you have to actually uh, take the time to explain it.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. If you got to explain it, you didn't do a good enough job of showing it to begin with.
Yeah,
Show, don't tell, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And I'm going to give Marvel a nod because I tend to do that because I'm a fanboy and everybody shut up. I don't care. Um, this is we've said it for years. And I know you have. I know I have as well. Marvel has the best villains because at the end of the day, you can kind of see where they're coming from. They didn't have that with her at all. Not at all.
yeah.
When she very robotically at the end says, every time one of you shows up, another one shows up. We can't have that. Something that, like, I kind of get it now why this group would be in existence, but she's not the person to be leading the charge.
She
So,
several times in this movie felt like one of the Borg because she just was so she was just so
yes.
monotone, and her skin was just so pale at points. It's just like, yeah, uh,
Yeah. We are the
it,
Borg.
it's it's just stuff that they added in there that they didn't take the time to explain. So why would we care about it? Like when we first see the clover leaf on her hand, it's like, well, we don't know what that is in connection to.
No.
So what does that mean?
And the scene in the restaurant when they're all talking and then suddenly they all get quiet. Tell me what that scene was because
The
I've
part
I've
when she
missed
says,
something.
touch my hand, and he sees that.
Yes.
Right. That's what I mean. That's part of it too. Because we see the clover leaf and then he touches her hand, and then we see that she's in there, and it's supposed to infer something to us, but he hasn't taken the time to tell us what that means yet. So
Okay.
there is no payoff.
Right. Okay.
It just feels like something arbitrary that just happened.
I thought I missed something. I thought there was something in that restaurant scene that happened earlier, maybe in another film that I just forgot about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
there's a
sure we'll
lot of.
get to the climax of that part and
Oh wow.
why that is bad, but boy was that scene bad.
Well, okay. So you're this character, um, and you're Dr. Ellie Staple. Okay, you're a sham. This is all a work. Okay, and it's all about taking these three men out of the equation. I think she had every intention of killing them all. She said something about I forget how she put it, but like they could have been saved if they'd stopped or if one of them hadn't showed up, or I forget how she put it. We didn't have to kill you. It's kind of what she's referring to. But like, okay. So it's a work. You know, it's a work. You know, they're all three legit. You know, it's the real deal. You know, they're not lying. You're just feeding them a line of BS to try to convince them that they're lying, okay, or that they're fooling themselves or they're whatever. Why would you put them in three chairs in the same room together? What's the purpose of this, Phil? One of the worst scenes I've ever seen, ever. This makes no sense to me at all. I mean, it looks good on the big screen because you're like, oh. But it makes no
They're all
sense at
finally
all.
together. No, it was
Yeah.
just a visual to get all three of them in the same place at once. Um, and to use that in the trailers and all of the promotional stuff because they're all here. It's all the characters for the movies. Um, yeah, those scenes made no sense. Uh, but again, her entire mo and the way that she was attempting to um diffuse the situation, for a lack of better words, wasn't good. It didn't make any sense. It's
No.
nonsensical. Uh, just nonsensical uh plot device kind of, because it was kind of like she would just come up with convenient stuff that tied to comics. And boy, all of this stuff in Unbreakable where Mr. Glass would point out things and similarities to comics and he would make nods to comics. They were all very cleverly done and they
Mm-hmm.
were seamlessly added to the script. They couldn't have been any more contrived in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
All of the nods to comics in this movie were very contrived. Just having someone randomly stand in a comic book store to get a reference to something that points to something else, and you have no reason for this character to be even in a comic book store. It's just so stupid.
Oh, it's horrible. Isn't it the same kid that ran it in Unbreakable? Same guy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, having having Elijah's mom point out things from
Oh,
comics and
terrible.
then him come out and
Terrible.
it's so contrived, and it just it when a movie basically tells you that it's in on its own joke, and it believes its own hype, that's when it's done. That's when it's hard to immerse anymore. And there were
Yeah.
several times in this movie where those kind of quotes took me out of the movie.
Yeah, it happened to me too. Her son Glass is laying there dying, and she's talking about comic books with him. What are
I
we
thought this
doing?
was a limited edition. It's like, no, this isn't a
Jesus.
limit edition. It's an origin story. Oh,
Oh, whose origin story?
it's so bad. It's
Who's?
supposed to be Ellie's origin story. Well,
Oh,
no,
I
I'm
get
sorry.
it.
No, I'm sorry. It's supposed to be, because when we get to the second twist,
Ah, yeah,
uh, it's basically Mr. Glass is creating the origin stories for more people like the
yep,
three of them.
yep. Um, and man, this movie leaves the possibility of a fourth one wide open. We'll get to that. Um, we've not said anything about Anya Taylor Joy back as Casey Cook. Um, I started with The Good Doctor. I'm going to give you first crack at this. What's your take about this character being back and how she did in this film?
Uh, so at the beginning of this movie, we're told that the incident where she was kidnapped was 3 weeks ago, right?
Yes.
Um, the change from her character in Split to her character in this movie happens way too fast, and it just doesn't feel earned.
Mm.
Um, because even like I can believe she went and she found a foster family and she was comfortable again. Um, but she's just too happy for something traumatic to happen like that 3 weeks ago.
Mm. Yeah, I'll buy that. All right. So I'll be honest with you. I think that what happened with her and Kevin Wendell Crumb is maybe spoke to her on a level that she wasn't anticipating, and maybe it changed things for her. And I'm just giving the character the benefit of the doubt. But here's my comeback to this. I don't I don't think we needed her to the extent that we got her. And I personally think this would have been more impactful had she been watching something on TV and realized that there was a fight going on or whatever and showed up. Because
Yeah,
dude, I just don't see what benefit would there be unless it's Kevin's broken. I know what that is. I know what it's like to go through hell. I've been going through hell my whole life. And like when Kevin looked at her in Unbreak or in Split and said, get the shotgun, kill me, just end it. She could see something in his eyes that no one else could see because Kevin was never in the light, right? But I didn't buy that this crazy wackadoodle doctor person would ever let her in the room at the same time as him at all. I just don't. No, I wasn't feeling it, man. Something about that didn't work for me at all.
Yeah, I do think that there was too much of her in this movie. I don't think that she added much to the story here. And again, a lot of stuff just didn't feel earned. Um, I feel like the stuff with their relationship did not feel earned. I feel like she cared more about Kevin based off a guy that kidnapped her
Mm.
and murdered two people she was there with and was
Mm.
seconds away from murdering her. Um, yeah, it just didn't really work.
And in the 3 weeks, didn't they flat out say in the 3 weeks he had already killed like four of the girls? It was
Yes,
six deaths in total, I think. So maybe
yes,
it was three of the girls. Yeah. Wow.
yeah. And we're supposed to believe in the midst of this that this girl that had gone through a traumatic experience with her stepdad uh, for all this time is now empathetic of this man that kidnapped and attempted to kill her.
Yeah.
That
It's hard to
that
swallow.
it there was not enough time between the incidents to make that make sense, and there wasn't enough development between them in between that time for that to make sense either.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, are we supposed to imply that maybe if she didn't go through that experience, that she wouldn't have had the courage um, to tell the police about her abuse? Maybe,
Right. Yeah.
but that still doesn't explain why she would have such an attachment to Kevin. And maybe it's like, okay, well, I know she's sick. I know that he's not well, but still,
Yeah, and it's not for nothing, Phil, but supposedly this wasn't even going to happen, this entire film. Um because Split failed to deliver at the box office, or at least to them was a disappointment. Um, so M. Night says that in August 2001, he stated that because of his successful DVD sales, he'd approached Touchstone Pictures about an Unbreakable sequel, but the studio originally declined because of the film's disappointing box office performance. Okay, Unbreakable is disappointing. Okay. Then everything snowballed from there. We got Split and got this movie. All right, I got it straight. I mean, yeah, we didn't need this film. And if we did get this film, and I was going to save this till the third act of this episode, Phil, but I'm not gonna. I'm just going to do it right now. Um, you are the guy directing this bit. Okay, this film's going to happen whether you think it should or not. Fix it. How you fix this? How would you fix this?
I think I think most of the conflict needs to revolve around uh, David and Mr. Glass because I think their conflict is mostly lost here.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's one of the biggest problems with this movie. Um, whose character arc are we supposed to follow throughout this movie?
Good question.
Is it supposed to be Kevin's? Is it supposed to be David's? Is it supposed to be Mr. Glass when he spends the first 60 or 70 minutes of this movie not speaking? Is it supposed to be any of those supporting characters? I don't think we get a clear answer to that. I think we just get like bits and pieces of character arcs, but nothing that really is the through line of this movie.
So, what do you do with the Horde? What do you do with McAvoy's character? Is he still in this, and to what degree is he in it?
I think you make I think you could easily make this movie the same way where you make I completely forgot that happened. Uh, where you make the Beast uh the heavy for Mr. Glass, and he manipulates him into helping him with his scheme, which he essentially did here.
Mm,
Um, and I feel like there doesn't need to be that much more to that because that's how they would do it in a comic. Um,
mm,
and it's essentially the same here, but it's just such a mixed bag to how we get there. Um, I just don't think that we need as much screen time dedicated to certain other aspects of this movie. The origin story we get for Kevin, by the way, boy, that couldn't have come out of nowhere. But it was a clever way to tie back to Unbreakable. It was a nice use of footage from Unbreakable,
mm-hmm.
and it was a nice way to kind of wrap up the final twist of the movie that he created both of these guys, and in the end, he's going to create more. But the way that it just came out of nowhere, because as a matter of fact, I'm saying there are two twists to this movie. Um, there's the twist that uh, the 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 psychiatrist is the bad guy all along. She's the big bad of the movie all along. Then there's the second twist with Mr. Glass later. But the Kevin origin stuff is a third twist.
Mm,
And that's why I meant earlier this feels like a Shyamalan movie, but it feels like it's overindulgent on things that made other Shyamalan movies good. It's like,
mm,
hey, I can't just do this one magic trick because this is kind of my signature magic trick. I got to give you another one because
yeah.
it's like, hey, I pulled this rabbit out of a hat. Hey, but look at this other rabbit over here that has nothing to do with that rabbit. It's like, okay, but how do these two things link? Uh, what's that behind your ear? Let me pull this out. And it's like, no, explain this other thing first.
Oh, yeah. I don't. Yeah. Yikes. I don't know, man. I'm with you. There's a lot going on here, and one twist too many. One twist. One twist too many. I don't. I mean, he's rolling the dice with this. This kid's got split personalities, and I'm gonna kill his daddy because hey, that'll do it. Like, no, what if the kid never became anything? You did that for nothing.
Well, he didn't
Uh,
know. What I figured out is when he went in and he was reading the files on both David and Kevin. When he read Kevin's file, he found out that his dad died in an accident. And that's when he had the scene where he was shocked
ah,
because he was like, I was right. I wasn't just right about David because I made David, but I unintentionally made Kevin too. And
gotcha,
that just
gotcha.
proved me more right about what I thought all along. And he even says that towards the end. He was like, what are the odds
Yeah,
of
yeah,
David and your dad being on the same train at the same time?
yeah. Because he's all giddy about it. He's real happy about it.
Yeah, and that was what we were supposed to get from the scene where he's reading the file and we don't see what he's reading because he's
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I made you too. I was right all along. I knew it."
yeah. I mean, yeah, I get it now. I just, hoy, there's so much about this movie that could have worked, and but so much of it didn't. That's what kills me. And anytime I see a movie that for me didn't work, I walk away from it thinking, what could have worked? There was so much going. Dude, you've got one of the hottest directors of our generation. I mean, you'd have to say he is. And like you've got three top stars in Hollywood, period, bar none. I mean, these I mean, come on, man. Three top guys here. Top director. It's a comic book esque storyline. Sign me up. But like, yeah, it's not clicking. It's not working. We've not talked much about Joseph. We did when we mentioned the cast, but dude, Spencer Treat Clark as Joseph Dunn. maybe, and even though there was moments when she was trying to convince him that maybe his dad wasn't special after all, and the character was dumb enough to believe that for like 30 seconds, which I'm like, what? You've seen it firsthand, you doofus. Dude, he's great in this film. He looks like that little kid all grown up. He really loves his dad, believes in his dad, and we saw how inseparable they were in the first movie. I loved him. I thought it was great. I didn't see anything. I didn't bump into anything with him other than the character wise, a couple of different moments, but nothing I got too hung up on him. What about you?
I thought it was a great addition to this movie. It was I think that it was that was one of the things that if this felt like an Unbreakable sequel, I thought that stuff was good. Just to revisit um David and Joseph and to have him be David's man in the chair.
Hmm.
Uh I like that. I like their dynamic with the store. Um that felt like a natural progression of what their characters would be. Um I didn't understand I didn't understand what they were trying to say about Audrey. I get that we're supposed to know Audrey died, but they don't really flesh out how she died. How is that? How does that tie into the story? And that's what I mean. It's just there's so many things that they put on the table here, but they don't really satisfyingly answer any questions.
Yeah. No, they don't at all. What did you think about Dunn's death scene? Because I got thoughts on this. What do you think about this?
Okay, are we getting into the final climax of this movie, or just Dunn's death?
Well, I mean, let's touch on Dunn's death first, and then we'll, you know, spill the rest of it here.
Dunn's death felt entirely anticlimactic because we don't get to see him. We didn't get to see him for 16 years doing anything after he discovered what he could do. And so the appeal of Glass is going, oh, we're finally going to get this character back on screen, and now he's going to be, you know, unleashed kind of. He's off the chain, and we're going to see him, what he can do as a fully realized character. And that never happens in this movie. So when he dies, it's just like, oh, all right. It'd be kind of like in the first X-Men movie. Um, some of the critique of it is that Wolverine is too tame in there. I want to see him cut loose. So how would you really feel in X-Men 2 if we get semblances of him cutting loose and then he just dies in the final act?
Ah, right.
And then the way he dies is just so underwhelming. Um, so you're telling me this guy that is invulnerable and has super strength dies because somebody drowned him in a shallow puddle?
Yep. Yep.
After all of that,
Yeah.
that couldn't have been any more anticlimactic.
And Glass didn't do it, and the Horde didn't do it.
No, just random unnamed guard guy
Mm-hmm.
is holding his head in this shallow puddle on the street.
And then when Joseph runs up to confront them, they just stand there like, we don't know what happened.
Yeah, they just all stand around and look at him as he is just like having this terrible moment where they're doing the muted screaming, and
Oh yeah.
it just was the whole time it was happening. I was just like, wait, is he really dead? That's how they're gonna end
Yeah.
his story arc?
Terrible.
And I was like,
Terrible.
okay, so what are we supposed to take away from his story arc?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. There's nothing to take away because
Nothing.
he lost his wife, and when when it's brought up, he's still grieving. You can see it in his eyes. He's still grieving. So he lost his wife. He's on the run from the cops, who, by the way, want to lock him up because you can't just go around bashing people in the head. Go figure.
Oh my God. What was the beginning of this movie? The guy, Superman punches that guy, and then he goes back home. Was he just doing it to film himself, walking around the street beating up people? And
Yes.
then at comeuppance, um, the overseer follows him home and beats him up in his home. What?
Yeah.
What was that? And then he gives that awful line, man. You got to Salt Bay me. What?
God. What's that about? I bumped
What?
into that so hard. I hit my head on it.
I completely forgot about that scene until you just said that
Yeah.
he was dispensing comeuppance. But if our if our takeaway from David is that um, he's a he's a he's a genuinely good guy and he just wants to do the right thing. We don't see enough of it to care. At least
Yeah.
not in between Unbreakable and Glass.
And I go back to what you said in the first part of this show, Phil. We're just supposed to infer what happened in the meantime.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we could take away that he spent years doing great things afterwards and he had his own private security and he was doing good things, but I don't know, to wrap up his arc after Unbreakable that way just felt completely disappointing.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense at all. It didn't make any sense at all. I mean, a lot of this movie didn't make any sense at all, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
And I get in some ways it's supposed to be a very abrupt shock. It's supposed to be this snatching the band-aid off moment. But it just doesn't have the weight it should have because again, these are characters from a 16-year-old movie where you didn't give us a proper second act to make the third act feel like it meant anything.
Yeah, because you're right. We don't get enough background. We don't get any context at all. We don't see what he's done. We don't have, again, Phil, the Marvel reference. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. We don't have that moment of random people being interviewed that he's helped, or the
Yeah.
random word of the people in the street that says, look, I think he's doing some good. Cops should leave him alone. You know,
We got a fantastic setup for three characters, and it felt like they rushed straight to the climax with these three guys without giving us enough in between for it to matter. It feels like it was set up. All right, we're finished with it.
yeah. 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 It's this movie's quite the mess. Even down to the orderlies at the hospital didn't make any sense to me at all. Um, the tall guy who liked to run his mouth quite a bit and all he did was talk. Did you see him do anything wrong to anybody? Because like
No.
the other guy was threatening to drop the heavy flashlight on Glass's legs. I get it. That guy was probably doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing. But like the other guy, and Glass is a heel, right? Phil, I'm supposed to be mad that he killed him, but aren't I also supposed to think that these three guys, or the Glass especially, has been humiliated and made fun of and left out in the cold since he got there because they think he's basically a turnip? Which, by the way, Phil, how did he become a turnip? Because did I miss something?
Um, the twist number 4, the twist we're supposed to take away
Yeah,
is that we think he's comatose because to Sam Jackson's credit, he completely commits to not saying anything or being completely out of it for the first hour of this movie.
yeah,
So when he finally does do something, it's just like, oh, what? I thought you were comatose all this time. Even though that doesn't really shock anybody because we've seen the promotional material and he has lines in the promotional material and he's walking around. Well, not walking around, but in the wheelchair and he's moving around. So we knew it was going to happen at some point. But again, it just doesn't feel like it means anything because we're supposed to believe that he's getting one over on orderlies and the doctor, but it never feels believable at all.
And maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's where I bumped into it. I guess we're supposed to believe that the medication that he wasn't taking this whole time was turning him into this vegetable where he was just sitting there, I guess. Because when they
Yes,
arrested him, he was perfectly fine.
yes. We're supposed to believe that he's taking the meds that they're giving him, and the medicine has him out of it. Um, but you have to take logical leaps with that. That makes the orderly staff look like idiots. It makes this big bad that you set up for the entire movie that's supposed to be the smart doctor to also look like an idiot.
What about when they woke him up for that procedure and suddenly he could talk? And they not us, because we find out later he'd even removed the piece from the machine that was actually going to do the damage to his brain, right? Without them knowing about it. We didn't even know about that. So like even he knew what he was doing, but they didn't. And they didn't. Oh, you can talk. They didn't even bump into that. What happened?
No, when that scene is one of the most unintentionally funny scenes in the
Yeah.
movie
Yeah.
of them coming in there and waking him up, and it's like, we know you've been faking it all along, Glass. He's like, where?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess. I was see. All right, so see there you go. Just then, it meant so little to me that I kind of forgot that line was that we've seen you rolling around, we've seen you on camera.
Yeah, we
Jeez,
know you've
Louise.
been leaving your room. We know
Yeah,
you've been
yeah.
faking it all along. And he's just like, what? Huh? Where?
Not me. You got the wrong guy.
The other funny thing about it, about this stuff where we get the we get the payoff that he has been scheming all along to break out of this place, and he had one up on them because he took the piece out of the laser machine that was going to lobotomize him, which I don't know how that was supposed to work. And how would they know that it
Yeah.
did not work? Again, there's so many logical leaps that makes the staff look idiotic. Like, if this machine is
Yeah.
supposed to lobotomize him, how would they not see that it didn't do what it was supposed to do? It doesn't make any sense. So the funniest part about all of this is every time he gets one up on somebody, it's almost like a light in the background comes on and says, "Glass, get it, guys, glass." He kills the orderly with a piece of glass, and he's like, "I was just looking for the right shape all this time." Glass. He killed him with glass, guys.
Ah,
Um,
yeah.
he takes the part out of the machine, and it's the part that he was sitting at the desk looking at.
Oh
And
my.
what's in the piece? Glass. Glass lenses, baby.
Yeah.
It's like
What's in his body?
it's so
Bones?
corny.
They're glass. Yeah.
Yeah, just so many glass puns
Yeah.
or see glass broken glass. It it wasn't done in a clever way like they had done in the other two movies. It just felt kind of hackneyed.
Yeah, and there's two things that this movie got right. Number one, um, it makes sense to me that David Dunn would have been doing superhero stuff all these years. Because as we found out in Unbreakable, he finally woke up and was not sad anymore. He didn't wake up depressed because he finally had found his purpose. It makes sense, honestly, that Andrea has passed away, because now it makes sense. Him and his son are very, very tight. Anyway, it makes sense that his kid would actually be helping him in the chair. I didn't bump into any of that. I didn't bump into Glass being locked up this whole time, because he definitely would be locked up this whole time in a mental institution, not a prisoner in Gen Pop. No chance, no way, no how. I didn't bump into any of that. The Kevin stuff I totally bumped into from the start. They lead him into the prison with the lights. This guy should have been chained up on a board like Hannibal Lecter, Phil, like heavily chained, and he wasn't. And like, what are we doing here? Like moments like that just completely missed the boat for me.
Well, you see, if we chained him, then that would blow up
Yeah.
my entire scheme, because then he would know that his powers were
Right.
real. And I couldn't try and convince him that they weren't, because why would I need to put you in chains when your
Right.
powers aren't real?
So, okay. So here's back to Tom has to infer stuff again because he wasn't shown. Am I to infer then that this doctor person showed up at the trial and said, "I'll take him"? You know that he doesn't deserve to
What,
be.
Mr. Glass?
No. The horde.
Well, there was no trial, because remember when they took the horde and David, it's because they stopped their fight at the beginning of the movie.
Oh yeah,
They just picked them up off the street.
that's right. Regular cops didn't pick them up. It was, or was it?
Oh, but remember, nobody else is supposed to see anything. They so-called wiped all existence away of the horde, so nobody would see anything that they've done. But at the same time, this big brigade of SWAT came out and took two men off the street and took them away, and nobody talked about it anywhere.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Man. You know, talking about the movie presents more problems than I remembered seeing or having when I saw the movie for a second time.
That's not a good movie. That's why.
Ooh.
Not a good movie. Yeah. Are we ready to talk about the climax? Well, the first climax before we get to the dun 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 second twist.
Yes. Let's. We may as well do it.
Okay. So the thing I will give Shyamalan credit on is that he does a very good job of building tension around something for the first half of a movie, and then paying it off well uh, later in the movie. It's what makes Unbreakable good. It's what makes Split so good. It's what makes The Sixth Sense so good, because we don't see the twist coming. And by the time we see the twist coming, there's an aha moment. The problem with the twists in this movie and the climaxes in this movie is the aha moments are not good enough to justify the hour or so you spent setting it up. Um, those scenes in the mental institution are not interesting enough for me to care that all this time Mr. Glass is setting up this scheme that is a scheme inside of a scheme that it just doesn't really hit, because we're supposed to believe that Glass is trying to break himself and the horde out to have this big climactic fight at the tallest tower in Philadelphia, because he wants everybody to see it, which is very meta, and I get it, right? Because every comic book movie and all of these genre films end with a big dramatic fight in front of a big structure, and everybody sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we as an audience are conditioned to believe that. So we all think that that's where this movie is leading. And so that's where we're supposed to be going with this. He's breaking out, he's using the basement to break out. They're setting all these crumbs later for the second twist. All right. We start the conflict with immediately they break out and they are attempting to go to this tall building. The first thing we see the Beast do is snatch two women and throw them in the back of a van for no reason.
Yeah.
It was like, what? It almost felt comical, because it was like, wait, why did he do that?
Yeah. I'm gonna say
what did that have to do with the plan?
Yeah, nothing.
It was just like, this guy is sick. He likes to. He has a thing with women, and so the second he saw the light outside of the mental institution, he saw two women. I know what I gotta do. I gotta throw him in a van. What?
It kind of reminds me of the Austin Powers flick Goldmember, when he's talking about dipping them in gold, and the room gets quiet, and he goes, "It's kind of my thing, you know." I love that.
That's almost what it felt like. Like Like at some point, Glass was going to turn to him, but like, what are you doing? This is my thing. I'm sorry.
What
So
does he say? Because he says something to him.
I don't remember him saying anything. I remember him continuing to roll,
Yeah.
and act like none of it was happening. Well, I mean, we find out later why that was inconsequential to him at that point. But so the conflict itself happens. All right. Uh, David gets out of his cell. Um, he gets outside, has the fight with uh the beast, which is intentionally supposed to not look good. Again, it's all meta. He is subverting our expectations here. He being Shyamalan. Shyamalan is getting us to expect there's going to be this great fight with the two of them, and it never materializes. It's just them kind of tussling around against this van, and then also tussling against some water, and it doesn't really lead to anything, right? Because it's not supposed to lead to anything.
Mm-hmm.
There is no big triumphant moment. So then we get to first twist. I'm sorry, first twist before series of twists. First twist. Joseph shows up. He's manipulating you. He's not telling you the truth, like they do in comics. Shoehorned comic referencing.
Yeah.
He's not telling you the truth. The parents always know more. And then I thought that this was just bad acting at first because Sam Jackson just kind of goes, "No, don't tell him that yet." And I was like, "Why? He couldn't have said that any flatter." But we find out later why he said it that way.
Yeah.
And so then we get the flashbacks and find out his dad was on the same train, that David survived, and that's how he found out that he was unbreakable. Okay, we get this moment. It should feel like a good payoff that he turns on Glass because Glass is manipulating him, but it doesn't because in this instance, Glass is wrong too because Glass is stuck in the same prison as him. And so when he breaks him out, they're still in front of the prison, mind you. All of this stuff is still happening in front of the prison. This is supposed to feel like this comeuppance moment. We're supposed to be with Kevin on this moment. I don't have to do much to break you. He just breaks him, and it's just like, okay. After all of that, he's just dying.
Yeah. He nudges him.
Yeah, he nudges him, which is supposed to be this visual representation of just how much more powerful the beast is in comparison to Glass, because he's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. It is a cool visual moment. But to just kill Mr. Glass that way after everything, it just was like, okay. Then we get the Kevin reveal of him getting talked down and then immediately getting shot in the stomach.
Oh my God. Immediately. Yeah.
Immediately getting shot in the stomach, and then mustache twirly moment with Dr. Ellie standing behind the truck where the guy shot him from. Dun And then we get of course the way that David dies, as we talked about, in that shallow pond, and we get her touch my hand, David. And none of it really feels like I said, it amounts to anything. None of it feels like a good payoff to anything we've seen earlier in the movie because there's just not enough there in the first two acts of this movie for it to feel like a proper conclusion at all.
No. Yeah, for sure.
It just feels like he set up a conflict and never did enough to make it compelling. And then he gave us the most underwhelming conclusion possible. And I guess the twist that she was behind it all along because she's with this clandestine organization that stops any powered beings from getting too out of hand. It just didn't work. It just felt like it came out of nowhere. It felt like Poochie, the cell just getting lifted off screen.
And honestly, again, there's stuff that works here. This clandestine organization that we never find out the name, when she says, it's Clover. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
we just see the clover leaf tattoos that we're supposed to understand mean something.
yeah, I don't know what it means. But I'm actually okay with the idea. When she says that we've been doing this for 10,000 years, like, this is why you don't hear about us, because we stopped it before it can get started, that kind of thing. Like, honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. I kind of dig that, actually. I like that. But, like, who funds them? Where'd they come from? Is it government, or is it something else? Is it investors? Is it, sort of the New World Order kind of thing? Is it the Illuminati? What's behind this? I kind of like the mystery of it. I'm actually okay with it, but I didn't. They didn't give me enough to care anything about it, because, like you said, we got 20 seconds of a reveal, and that's how the movie goes off. And you're like, wait a minute, that's it. So, because, dude, when David Dunn dies, the bad guys have won, right? There's no two ways about it.
Yes. But I'm with you. The idea, the concept behind the twist is not bad. It's a good idea, but it's not a fully formed idea. And it's not a fully formed idea that comes at the expense of what this movie was supposed to be. Uh, if you spend months telling me that this is going to be this big blow off that brings these three characters together, and we never quite get that because we spend most of the movie with the three of them locked up in a mental institution. Yeah, you didn't give me what you promoted. Instead, you made two glasses quote, this isn't a limited edition. This is origin. You kind of gave us an origin for her character in this organization, but that's not what I tuned into this movie to see.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
I don't want to see that. It's like, again, it's like if you spent all of the original Phase 1 bringing the Avengers together, and then they're all on screen together. They all talk about teaming up for the entire movie. And then it gets to the team up scene. It looks like it's like on the cusp of them doing something cool together. And then Nick Fury just turns around. We've got to end all of this and just kills all of them. What?
I mean, in that instance, it really is Sam Jackson's fault if that happens in two movies. I'm just saying. It's like, come on.
Yeah, and so the twist is not bad. I don't want to say the twist is bad. The twist is not bad. It's just that the twist feels random because there wasn't enough explained of her motives. There wasn't enough about any of the stuff revolving around that character or the organization that would explain to us. There weren't even hints of it later to get us to that point. It just felt like it was completely out of nowhere. And like I said, it came at the expense of everything. And again, look, I get the meta commentary he's trying to do. This is not a comic book movie, guys. This entire franchise has built itself on not being a comic book movie, but being kind of smarter than a comic book movie. So it's kind of like Watchmen, where it's like, hey, did you think I was going to spend the entire time monologuing and waiting for you guys to stop my plan? No, the plan is already done. The plan is already, I've already won. And so it's kind of like in this real world situation. What did you think? The all were going to have this big, everything was going to be decided by this fist fight between the Beast and David? No, of course not. At the end of the day, this is ended very quickly. And that's fine. But the way that you did it just kind of felt like a jip. It just felt like it feels like I was scammed. It feels like I was told I was getting one thing, and then I got to the end of this, and I was still, to another Poochie reference, I was still wondering, when are we getting to the fireworks factory? No, you're not getting the fireworks factory. Instead, we're going over here to the box factory. But why?
Yeah.
Why? You never said anything about boxes. Why are we over here?
And we talked about fixing this. I'll fix part of this right now. From the moment that they land in this hospital, they're told straight out, "We've been watching your kind for 10,000 years. We've been shutting you down the whole time. You don't have a way of getting out of here because there is no way to get out of here. This is where you'll stay until you die." And
But
maybe,
that would have screwed up her plan.
but see, there is no plan. Screw it. There is no plan. I'm rewriting this. So instead of that stupid twist at the end, the plan is we're going to remove the powers from you. And then they end up having to cooperate and work together to try to find a way out of the hospital. You could still do the twist with Kevin's dad and all that crap, but we don't have to have the twist of this wacky doctor who's not who she says she is. I think I would be okay with that. I'd be better with it than what we got.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to write a better movie. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, look, and there's things to like. I mean, again, I think the visual of the way the Beast beat glass so easily was fine. Was cool. I think that there are certain things like I was gonna say there are certain things about the fight with the Beast, but there are certain things there that are just so cheesy and contrived. You want me to believe that this is smarter than your average comic book movie, but you also do something like randomly have this big vat of water next to the hospital for the Beast to throw the overseer into just for no reason. It's just right next to the right next to this mental hospital. It just doesn't make sense.
But the vat of water was to keep David in check in his cell. That's where the water was coming from.
Oh, are we supposed to believe that the vat of water was connected to all of those pipes that were in his cell?
Yes.
And what is covering that and keeping this water in there is a tarp?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I suppose.
Okay. Not the sophisticated water system that is piping water in there. It's just a big vat of water with this green tarp over it. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, oh man. And like I said, there's other meta commentary here. I don't know if you caught this. M. Night Shyamalan is in this movie, right? And he reprises his character from Split, who is also he also had a brief cameo in Unbreakable. And so he goes over his continuity throughout the movies. I used to hang with the wrong crowd, and you know, I got bad. I forgot the line he used, but positive thinking or something like that.
Yeah.
Meta commentary of this movie is kind of the bait and switch, and that's kind of what M. Night Shyamalan has become famous for. That's his the trademark, the twist. And so I feel like he's trying to do this wink and nod to the audience and go, I bet you guys think the twist is over here. Is it in this hand? Nope, it's not in this hand. Is it in this hand? No, it's not in this hand. Oh, it's in your pocket the whole time. That I feel like that works on a meta level, but it isn't engaging as a narrative. If that makes sense.
Oh no, I get it. You can't. Yeah, it's. I'm a pro wrestling guy. What can I say? ECW would never have made it long term because you can only do the niche stuff for so long. But if you want to go long term and survive, then you have to do other things as well. You got to have some meat to the bone. It can't just all be sizzle. It's got to be some steak too. There's got to be something else.
Even if we want to put this into wrestling terms, the reason the finisher works is because you've trained your audience to know it's coming.
Ah, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You know that the wrestler is gonna eventually hit his finisher. That's gonna be the end. 1, 2, 3. It's a call and response. And so if you spend the entire match setting up the finisher, you keep getting there. Like if it's the one winged angle, keeps getting somebody up into the electric chair position, and they keep getting out of it. They keep countering it, keep countering it, and then you get to the end of the match. You lift them up into the electric chair, but instead you don't go for the one winged angel. You just rolls him down into a roll up, and you pin him. That's the end of the match.
Yeah. Right.
But
I get you. Yeah.
you spent the entirety of this setting up something to roll us up into something, and then when you didn't give us what you set up for the entire movie, then you go to, I'm so clever, aren't I? Because I tricked you into thinking you was going to be this, but I ended the match this way. See what I did there? I do, but I didn't want that, and there's nothing about the way you ended that doesn't make that underwhelming.
Right. I said from the jump that they left this thing wide open, and they most certainly did, because they revealed to the world, thanks to the footage that they leaked online, that these guys are not, this is not, myths. These are not urban legends. These guys were the real deal.
Twist number 3. So
Yes.
for those listening at home, we have gone from the twist number 1. Mr. Glass created both David and the Horde,
Yep.
right?
Twist
Twist
two,
number 2.
yep, the
Dr.
doc.
Ellie has been behind it all along, and she
Yes.
outsmarted all of them, because when they didn't fall for her plan uh to just admit that they weren't special all along, and they escaped, she had to do what she had to do and reveal herself and kill them. All right. But ha ha ha, because Mr. Glass had one up on you all along, and he had figured out all along that the cameras were everywhere. So he used the cameras everywhere in the mental institution and outside of it to serve the purpose of getting the message out to the world. And he used the other 3 supporting characters, his mother, Joseph, uh, and the other character from Split, and they put that information out to the world.
I mean, as far as Criminal Mastermind goes, he's the smartest guy in this entire film, for sure.
It's supposed to be this Rorschach moment where at the end we find out the journal made it
Yes.
to the editor's office.
Nice. Yeah.
But the problem with that is it works as a great epilogue and send off for Mr. Glass, because as I've said before, I feel like Unbreakable is an origin story for Mr. Glass more than it is for David. Um, it works in that vein. But the problem is it isn't as smart or clever as I think Shyamalan thinks it is. Uh, it's just like when Mr. Glass is dying, and he's given all of these callbacks to the original movie. Like he said, I'm not a mistake, Mom. I was never a mistake. Um, that payoff hit at the end of Unbreakable, because you followed Mr. Glass and you did all the emotional character work throughout that movie for that to work, for that to matter. This is 16 years later. And so you just doing a callback to that doesn't work, because again, there was no second act.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And the only Glass that you know is the conniving, lying dude in the chair that slit a guy's throat with a piece of glass. You don't. Why would you feel bad for him? They had one flashback, right?
Yeah. At this point, we know Glass is a conniving guy that broke out of prison, killed the guy with the glass, and also is a domestic terrorist.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So no, that doesn't it doesn't quite hit the same. And his mother being there and consoling him as if he has not committed all these atrocities. No, no, it doesn't really connect.
No, it's not working. You're right. There's nothing there to hold on to. It's just
It's the same way as uh why am I drawing a blank on the girl's name from Split?
Casey.
Casey. The same way as Casey consoling Kevin as he's dying. Um, she talked him down and talked him back into Kevin. As soon as she did it, he was shot by the SWAT guy. As he's laying there dying, he's going through all the personalities, and he ends with Kevin, and Casey is consoling him, excuse me, and crying, and it's just like, well, why?
Yeah. Yeah. Why?
I just don't get the point where we get a connection between them just yet. It doesn't feel earned.
They're making it though. They're making it, and they want you to feel like it is. But you're right. It's not. Not enough has happened. There just hasn't. No, there hasn't been enough. Not enough happened in Split for there to be a connection, in my opinion.
No.
I mean, she had a half second of the beast telling her you're pure, rejoice or whatever, and he walked off. Well, that's not enough, I mean, come on. They left this thing wide open to explore this universe, dude, because now the world knows. And Glass's thing was, I'm going to show the world, so it encourages people like us to come into the light, right? I mean, is there more ground to cover here? Or do you think M. Night's done with this? Do we know? I mean, what's the answer?
No, because if you're setting up a 4 movie without the main 3 guys that you use to create this universe, yeah, you can get to the end of the Infinity Saga and take Tony off the board, because we've had countless movies with him to get to that point. We got a movie and a half with 3 of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it doesn't feel like once you take these guys off the board that I want to keep tuning in to see Joseph's adventures with Casey and Mr. Glass's mom. No, I'm not interested in that.
It's their adventures. It's their adventures together.
No, I'm not interested in that. And maybe you're going to introduce more super characters. This is your way of bringing in a younger cast and tying it to that continuity. Yeah, that could be interesting. But the problem with that is you sold me on a universe on 3 characters that didn't really develop enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, at that point, don't trust you enough to bring in a new character and develop a franchise around them.
I want to go back to the adventures because I think this would be fun. Because she's going to make them read comic books and they're going to have lunch at like a picnic at the park. That's their adventure. Like, what would they even do? I love this idea. We should run with this. They're going to have adventures. Why doesn't Joseph have anything? And would it have been cool if Joseph had possibly saved his father from drowning in a puddle by he grabs one of the guards and hurls him 100 feet away up in the air? And suddenly you're like, oh my God, he's got it too.
No. Because the commentary here is that that's something that will happen in a comic book. This is real life.
Life. What was I thinking?
Things are cruel and life is not fair.
Right.
That's what we're supposed to take away from this.
And the bad guys always win. I remember now.
That worked so well in Unbreakable because you still got the satisfying end of Mr. Glass getting his comeuppance because he got put away. There's no satisfying comeuppance to letting these SWAT team guys just kill David and get away with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally got away with it. I don't get it.
Even if Joseph's plan is my dad's death was worth it because now I revealed to the world that he was real and more people like him can exist. All right, but I still want justice for my dad's death.
Yeah, I still want my dad back. What are we talking about?
I still am not just gonna let you get away with murdering my dad, and then like I pushed you guys for a second, and then you guys just all stared at me like, "Are you done?"
Yeah, and the guards were like, "I don't know what happened. Do you know what happened? I don't know what happened. I'm just standing here."
No, like, I just saw you drown him.
Right. Why wasn't he like throwing punches at these guards? Why didn't they hit him with a baton and put him on his back?
No,
that's not a comic book.
Calm down, kid. What's the problem here? I don't know. You just drowned my dad.
I just watched you do it. I didn't do anything. Oh my God.
It's so terrible. Yeah, I don't know, man. And yeah, so once we get to that last reveal and it's supposed to be this light at the end of the tunnel because look, she didn't win. And how did she find out she didn't win? because it all made sense to her as she was randomly standing in the comic book store and she heard someone talking about the mastermind always has a second plan. And then she had like that moment of clarity in her mind. You heard the music from the Incredibles come on when he was looking at the screen, and all the revelations started hitting at the same time. It's like no, it can't be. And then when she finds it out, she like walks into a hallway and screams. And
Yeah.
that's like the most we see her like actually emote the entire movie.
Yeah. See, the bad guys didn't win, Phil. She was upset and screamed. See, she lost. Just saying.
Yeah. Oh boy.
You mentioned
What
The
a
Incredibles just now, by the way, Sam Jackson. I'm just saying he's everywhere here. So,
icon. He's an
icon.
icon.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I don't know how much more we could talk about this thing called a movie, but you mentioned the connection between that we were supposed to be led to believe that Glass and the Horde / Kevin / the Beast and all that stuff. It's kind of like Loki and the Hulk, where Loki was using Hulk in the Avengers, and honestly, I don't think any of us realized it until Scarlet Witch figured it out, or Black Widow figured it out. You're like, oh my God, he was planning to use the Hulk the whole time. It's actually a stroke of brilliance. But again, it doesn't work because it never feels like he's really using the kid. It just feels like it feels like he feels a kinship with him. I'm like, why? Because you're both supervillains? What are we doing? It even says it sounds like a supervillain team up. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Look, I'm using all of this comic terminology and all of these things about genre films and comic books to go, that's a cool wink. That worked in 2000 when we didn't have comic book movies.
yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
if your premise is the same premise as Smallville, when it's a prequel to something, and then the end of the movie is what you would have gotten later, then I don't want that because I could go tune into something else and get the actual thing that you're teasing and setting up.
And I
No, I
mean,
don't want to. I don't want a movie about Gotham's underbelly without Batman in it. No, I
right.
don't want Alfred Pennyworth's origin story. No, I don't want you to set up 3 characters here that are interesting and then throw them in a mental asylum and then kill them the second they get out.
And if you need any further proof, Phil, just how toxic this movie is, you know what happened right after this movie, right? COVID. I'm just saying. Within a month. I'm just saying, man. This movie came out January 2019. You do the math, brother.
There's a there's a Futurama bit that I used to say all the time when I didn't like something. Um, it's like Bender came and played his audition tape or something for the robot Calculon. And Calculon watches it and he goes, "That was so bad. I think it gave me cancer." That's what I immediately thought about after
Oh.
that movie was so bad. It gave us all COVID.
Well, all right. I take this back. It wasn't like the next month. I'm thinking 2020, but it did happen the same year. I still think I'm still going to hold this personally responsible. Um, yeah, again, Phil, a lot of stuff had the potential of working here, but at the end of the day, the execution just wasn't there. Um, yeah, this is not pretty. Again, not the worst movie I've ever seen, but if I'm holding this movie up to what it could have been, then I'm very disappointed. And if I'm holding it up to the other two, I'm still very disappointed. Disappointed, period. But like, it's still not the worst movie I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen other studios attempt comic book style films, and it's been an absolute train wreck. Do I personally call this a train wreck? No, but man, there's a lot of balls dropped here, man. A lot of balls dropped. Like I don't know. What's the last thing M Night's done, by the way? Since we're talking about him, Old in 2021. Remember that? It was some kind of weird beach movie when they went to the ocean, they got old and stuff.
Oh, I do remember that. I never bothered to try and watch that.
There's something coming up called Knock at the Cabin.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh, but listen, it stars Batista in it. So I'm on board with that. Every time I see Dave Bautista's name spells the way that it's spelled in his birth certificate, I hear Eddie in my head saying, Dave Bautista, every time. It's really good. Yeah, it's based on a short story he wrote in 2018. And I'll bet it's about some dude killing people at a cabin, but he's not really, because he's saving them, and the kids are the killers, but they're not really, because it's a bear, but it's not a bear. It's like a cyber bear. He's like a bionic bear or something. And then it's the little old groundskeeper. It's behind it the whole time. I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. Yeah, he stars. Well, we'll see what happens. Can't wait to cover that one, Phil. That should be interesting. Well, kids, there you have it. The last of the Unbreakable trilogy. If you stuck with us this long, good for you. You get a cookie. Yeah, first movie, massive potential, so well done. Number 2 had its moments. McAvoy's a king. Great twist at the end. Great twist at the end with David Dunn. Number 3, nah. That's where we're gonna leave it. Because that's where I gotta leave it. Phil, let's put the audience out of their misery here. Give me your last word on Glass.
I feel like it's a advantageous movie, man. If I will say this, to start with love, this was a smart idea. This was a smart idea to bring these characters together, to tie two of your better movies up together, and make it into a franchise. Um, this was an ambitious move on M. Night Shyamalan's part. And it could have been so much better. There's so much potential here, and I think that's what makes this movie so disappointing. It just had you set the table for something so interesting, and you decided to end it in such a completely uninteresting and underwhelming way. It's so strange. It's like to throw another Futurama reference at you. It's like we've been watching Fry play the holophoner well all this time, and then all of a sudden he can't play it anymore, and it's just like I didn't like any of that. Like you 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 made this incredibly cool thing and set up such cool things in two movies, and then you just decided, nope, I'm just gonna toss it all in the bin. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of feels like he's thumbing his nose at the comic book genre in this movie. It really does feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. You decided to make us all this incredible turkey dinner with all these fixings and everything, and then you tried to serve it to us on a trash can, and then you were like, "Oh, there it is! It's right in front of you." And then you were like, "Nope," flipped it right over, threw it in the garbage.
Oh, well, I mean, I can't say it much better than that. I mean, this had the potential, and all due respect to Bruce Willis. If any of you out there know the stories of what's going on with him with his health, it's apparently not good.
And see, that's why I understand. At the time you're making it, Bruce and Sam Jackson are too old to continue this franchise. I understand getting them off the board and setting up new characters and moving on. But you did not finish their arcs in a satisfying enough way for me to care what you do next.
Well, and what I was going to say was this was in 2019. He's done movies since then. they're low budget films that haven't made any money because, again, back to the story that I've heard is that his I don't know how else to say it. His mental capacity is leaving him, I guess. And so the idea is I'm going to get as many movies under my belt as I can because honestly, he's, I guess we all envision these guys being multimillionaires. Maybe he's not a multimillionaire. I don't know. But what I was going to say was, did he have maybe another Unbreakable film left in him? Was there one more that they could have done? And now we'll never know, especially now. But like we said, they killed the guy in the movie. Like, there wasn't one more film to wrap it up after that? I don't know. Crazy. Nope. No, apparently not.
I'm just going to drown him in this shallow pond.
That's right. Not even a pond. A pothole.
I'm sorry. A puddle.
Puddle to pothole. Not only will it flatten your tires, it'll kill your heroes too. Look out. Well, kids, there you have it. We're not going to spend any more time on this. Great cast, great director. And by the way, in case we failed to mention, and we totally did as we take this thing home, this sucker made some cash, folks. The budget on this thing was $20 million. It made $247 million at the box office. Wow. So it made some money, Phil. But probably 200 million of that are people going, "Oh my God, it's the new M. Night. Let's go see. That's me guessing. But, yeah, just imagine if you hadn't killed off the whole cast, what you could have done with another one. But you know what?
Yeah. He sold us on one thing, and that's why he sold so many tickets to this thing. Oh, it's a wrap up to this cool trilogy you set up. Kind of.
Right. C'est la vie, folks. If you want to see comic book films and comic book trilogies done right, I'm unabashedly Marvel. That's how I roll. Go check you out some Marvel. I guarantee you'll find what you're looking for. I don't know if you're going to find it here. If you disagree with everything we said in the past hour and some change, hey man, go with God, brother. It's all subjective anyway. We're just giving you our takes. We'll see if the future holds anything for Mr. Shyamalan in the comic book genre. Anything can happen, folks. Never say never. Right? But in the meantime, fortunately for everyone here, that is Glass. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.